As a young man, you don't have as much experience as men who have lived longer lives, who have had more opportunities to gain feedback and to take chances and to learn from mistakes and successes. But there is one thing that you can do to gain inexpensive experience, just like most of the men that have achieved great things throughout history have done as well. They've absorbed the genius of the men that came before them through reading. Very simple. It's not a hack, it's not a trick. It's a simple habit that the vast majority of men that I've studied in my studies on this channel and on my podcast, of the great men, the vast majority of them have had this habit. And don't listen to me. Let's listen to some of these men who have literally shaped the world that we live in. These are some quotes that highlight the importance of reading and studying history and the men that come before you. Number one, Napoleon Bonaparte, the famous European conqueror, second most influential man in history, according to Time magazine, said, "Show me a family of readers and I will show you the people who move the world." Second one is Teddy Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt was one of the most prolific and high-achieving men that's ever lived. Certainly in America, that's the case. He said, "I am a part of everything that I have read." Elon Musk was being interviewed and was asked, "How did you learn how to build rockets?" He looked at the interviewer and said, "I read books." Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, $200 billion guy, said, "I read with my breakfast, I read with my lunch, I read with my dinner. I've always been a reader." George Patton, one of the greatest military leaders of all time, particularly in the US in World War II, World War I, he said, "To be a successful soldier, you must know history." Charlie Munger, this is the last quote. Charlie Munger said, "In my whole life, I have known no wise people who didn't read all the time. None. Zero." Charlie Munger is, of course, the famous partner of investor Warren Buffett, billionaire, very wise guy. The point is, it is a common trait or a shared trait of great men to study the great men that came before them. What this allowed them to do, well, there's really three things that allowed them to do. Number one is when you read a story, similar to what Teddy Roosevelt said when he said, I'm a part of everything that I've read. It allows you, when you read a story, to implant yourself in the story. So if you're reading a story about a courageous person who acts courageously, you expose your mind and yourself to the characteristics, the traits, the habits, the mindset, and the actions of a courageous person. You start to impress those characteristics onto yourself. Courage is a virtue that happens with any positive virtue and any negative virtue, but we have the benefit of being removed from the story so we can decipher and be diligent in what we actually want to be exposed to positively, if that makes sense. It allows you to learn through their experience. You literally get to put yourself in the shoes of these men, sometimes writing the stories themselves. Sam Walton's a great example. One of the wealthiest families in the world, if not the wealthiest family in the world. They're worth $400+ billion as a family, the Walton family, who founded Walmart. Sam Walton, in the last couple years of his life, wrote an autobiography about how he built his business, how he built a successful family, how he maintained health to a high degree, how he maintained sanity, the habits, the lessons he learned. He literally wrote them down in his own words at the end of his life. He gave us the playbook. We can jump into their stories and then implant or superimpose ourselves into their stories and gain the insights that we want to gain from them. It's very important. The second thing that reading and studying the men that come before you allows you to do is the accumulated study of these men and of these stories reveals to you common traits, shared traits, one of them being reading. But in your own studies, you'll find different shared traits that resonate with you more particularly. It reveals to you these shared traits that then act as principles or guiding, like North Stars, guidelines, guardrails of sorts in your own life that allow you to create the framework of decision-making, of mindset, of virtues, of aphorisms that you want to live by. You start to notice, as a thing gets repeated more and more throughout these stories, the importance of that thing. So if something gets repeated in 10 of the 12 books that you read, or 10 of the 12 stories about men who have achieved great things, if 10 or 12 of those stories have recurring themes, we get to take note. Oh wow, Napoleon dealt with this, Jeff Bezos dealt with this, Sam Walton did this, General Patton did this, Winston Churchill did this, Ben Franklin did this. And it starts to also impress upon us the importance of these specific things that are revealed to us, these specific commonalities. Basically, creating a playbook for ourselves. The third thing is situational knowledge. General Patton, for example, was probably the most well-versed general on the Allied forces, probably one of the most well-versed people in World War II in military history. And what this allowed him to do was be confronted with a scenario, say there's a particular enemy attack that he has to defend against or an offensive move that he has to make. He gets presented or confronted with a scenario. Instead of only being able to refer to his own experience, he has a vast bank or library of knowledge that he can tap into. This allowed him to make decisions at a much quicker pace. He was very decisive. He could make decisions very quickly because he had 10, 100 times more information to pull from. The added benefit of that, of the flywheel of that, is that the quicker you make decisions, especially in battle, the quicker you make good decisions particularly, the more successful you'll be. So his awareness, his situational awareness and situational knowledge of the domain that he prioritized the study of allowed him to make better decisions, quicker, more effective decisions in actual battle, and ultimately increase the likelihood of his desired outcome. The same thing can be said of business, of athletics, of politics, of leadership, of whatever it is, in any domain. The more you study about the past, the more you can infer and predict more accurately about the future and make decisions based on those predictions that are more effective in your life. I love this example, and I'll leave you with this. Alexander the Great, one of the greatest conquerors of all time, studied Odysseus, Achilles. He actually studied under the famous philosopher Aristotle, but he studied the men that came before him, the conquerors, the military leaders, the mythology even of the men that came before him. Julius Caesar, the famous Roman emperor, studied Alexander the Great very, very passionately. He studied his moves, he studied his rise, the mistakes he made, the successes he had. Napoleon, the famous French conqueror, studied Julius Caesar, and many, many leaders, including Jeff Bezos, Sam Walton, Elon Musk, a ton of people utilize in the 19th, 20th, and 21st century, utilize lessons that they've learned from Napoleon. So basically, they've taken the playbook of the people that come before them, who took the playbook from the people that came before them. Over time, we get the benefit of being able to learn and then employ the lessons that these men across time have used in their lives and then have been relayed to us so graciously through their own writings or the writings of others. It's an incredibly important habit, I believe. I believe without a shadow of doubt, it's one of the most important habits that you can cultivate as a young man. It's what I've devoted this channel and my podcast and much of my life to doing, and relaying what I find to you. It's also one of the few shared characteristics that I found across my own studies of these men. It's almost laughable or comical how many of these men attribute much of their success to the study of the men that came before them. So I believe it's a trait of great men to study the great men that came before them, because it allows you and I to absorb the genius of the men that came before us, and then employ those lessons and that genius into our own life, ultimately fulfilling the vision that we have. I'll leave you with that. Hope you enjoyed.